St. Augustine, commentary on the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 30 and 31 following. Whereby he showed that living, that is, deriving their subsistence by the Gospel, was not imposed on the apostles as a necessity, but conferred on them as a power. And of this power the same apostle makes mention when he says, "If we have sown to you spiritual things, is it a great thing if we reap your carnal things? If others are partakers of this power among you, are not we rather?" But he adds, "We have not used this power." And a little afterwards he says, "They who serve the altar are partakers with the altar. Even so has the Lord ordained, that they who preach the gospel should live of the gospel. But I have used none of these things." It is clearly enough, therefore, that it was not enjoined on the apostles, but put in their power, not to find their living otherwise than by the gospel, and of those to whom by preaching the gospel they sowed spiritual things, to reap their carnal things, that is, to take their bodily support, and as the soldiers of Christ, to receive the wages due to them, as from the inhabitants of provinces subject to Christ. Hence, that same illustrious soldier had said a little before, in reference to this matter, "Who goes a warfare any time at his own charges?" 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 11 to 15 and 7. "Which he nevertheless did himself, for he labored more abundantly than they all. If then the blessed Paul, that he might not use with them the power which he certainly possessed, along with the other preachers of the gospel, but went a warfare at his own charges, that the Gentiles who were utterly averse to the name of Christ might not take offense at his teaching, as something offered them for a money equivalent, in a way very different from that in which he had been educated, learnt an altogether new art, that while the teacher supports himself with his own hands, none of his hearers might be burdened. How much rather did the blessed Peter, who had before times been a fisherman, do what he was already acquainted with, if at that present time he found no other means of gaining a livelihood? But someone will reply, "And why did he not find them, when the Lord had promised, saying, 'Seek first the kingdom and righteousness of God, and all these things shall be added unto you'?" Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. Precisely also in this very way did the Lord fulfill his promise. For who else placed there the fishes that were to be caught, but he who, we are bound to believe, threw them into the penury that compelled them to go a-fishing, for no other reason than that he wished to show them the miracle he had prepared, that so he might both feed the preachers of his gospel and at the same time enhance that gospel itself by the great mystery which he was about to impress on their minds by the number of the fishers. And on this subject we also ought now to be telling you what he himself has said before us. "Simon Peter therefore said, I go a-fishing. Those who were with him say unto him, We also go with you. And they went forth and entered into a ship, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Then Jesus said unto them, Children, have you any meat? They answered him, No. He said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and you shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishers. Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved said unto Peter, It is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. And the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from the land, but as it were 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishers. As soon then as they were come to land, they saw a fire of coals, lead, and a fish laid thereon, and bread. Jesus said unto them, Bring up the fish which you have now caught. Simon Peter went up, and drew the net to land full of great fishers, 153. And for all there were so many, yet was not the net broken. This is a great mystery in the great Gospel of John, and to commend it the more forcibly to our attention, the last chapter has been made its place of record. Accordingly, inasmuch as there were 7 disciples taking part in that fishing, Peter, and Thomas, and Nathanael, and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and 2 others whose names are withheld, they point by their septenary number to the end of time. For there is a revolution of all time in 7 days. To this also pertains the statement that when the morning was come, Jesus stood on the shore. For the shore likewise is the limit of the sea, and signifies therefore the end of the world. The same end of the world is shown also by the act of Peter in drawing the net to land, that is, to the shore, which the Lord has himself elucidated when in a certain other place he drew his similitude from a fishing net let down into the sea. And they drew it to the shore. And in explanation of what that shore was, he added, So will it be in the end of the world. Matthew chapter 13, verse 48 and 49.